I've been having a really good time with Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. I love arcade racers. And after a while, my natural inclination to explore kicked in. If you've seen my Sonic 06 accessibility video, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. All this racing reminds me of the movie Ready Player One with the racetrack world. The main character stopped trying to race normally and instead put it in reverse to see what would happen. Which I've tried in CrossWorlds, by the way, you just hit an invisible wall. But that got me thinking. Everybody's supersonic racing. And on top of all the item chaos going on, the world around us just kind of becomes a blur. Plus we're, stuck to the track. But what if we could get out of our car to go walk around and explore? Well, a few of you asked me how I got this thumbnail to use in my streams, which are Wednesday and Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. By the way, you should totally come, it's a lot of fun. The truth is, no, the Donpod did not give me VIP tickets to East Stadium, but I did find a way to freecam my way around. So I invite you to come with me just off the track to find some cool stuff, weird stuff, and maybe even some potential lore. We're gonna go in Grand Prix order, so we'll start with East Stadium, and then we'll work our way down to Wonder Museum. But there's so much this game has to offer, I can only do the first 9 tracks, so the first 3 Grand Prix in this video. But if you like the video enough, we'll do some more. The next 9 courses for sure, but if time permits, we'll do the last 6 before a third video in all the CrossWorlds and DLC. And I want to make one quick clarification before I start this video because people in my comments still ask me, yes, I'm aware that Sonic's Earth is not called Mobius. Of course I know this. It's my job. But I am going to refer to all the cartoon anthropomorphic animal people as Mobians because it's easier to say than cartoon anthropomorphic animal people. Anyway. By our first stop is East Stadium, I meant that quite literally. We can drive to East Stadium. There's a whole road leading in from what's most likely Central City that takes us to the stadium's parking lot. You know that lap 3 warp ring shortcut where you come out of this inaccessible hallway from the rest of the track? That hallway is the entrance to the stadium. When I was making this aforementioned thumbnail, I saw a bunch of Donpod Motors heavy machinery and I laughed, thinking to myself, how did he get those into this floating stadium? But no, there's actually a connection from the outside world to the pit box. Despite its name, Donpod Motors pretty much makes everything here in the pit box, from the heavy machines to these cameras. The company's like Yamaha. You want a grand piano and a superbike? Dude, you're never gonna believe this. There's also a bunch to check out near the pit box. We can walk inside the garages, check out these tiny cranes and news vans. I'd show you the inside, but it's locked. See this dude impaled with a tube? That's pretty cool. You know what isn't pretty cool? This entire row of bleachers. These poor Chao got scammed. You can't see a thing from down here. But the Chao at the top of the bleachers, they get to see everything. Speaking of Chao, in almost every level of the game, there's this tube thing with a starfish shape on top. In the previous game, Team Sonic Racing, inside every one is a singular Chao. What's he doing there? Is he in jail? Little baby jail? Who put him in jail? But in this game, the tube remains, for whatever reason, not really sure what purpose it served to begin with, but the Chao is gone. He's escaped. And so shall we. Off to the next track, Rainbow Garden. Fun fact, in the game's files, this track is actually called Flight Camp. I imagine it's because it's the first time your vehicle turns into a plane over this canyon. Since we can go wherever we want now, we can turn around, check out where the river at the bottom flows from. It seems to flow out from the natural spring in this cave. Above the canyon, we have a little villa to relax in. It's so nice here. It has plants, mats, these really comfortable throw pillows to lean against, blinds for privacy, and of course, a spectacular view of the race. There's actually a few of these villas scattered around the perimeter of the track, and yes, that includes the shortcut you race through. That one in particular also overlooks this really pretty lily pad and lotus pond that the river coming out of the canyon flows into. Also coming out of the canyon, we have some platforms for our news anchors to get shots of the race. Isn't that right, bud?
I'm gonna have nightmares for weeks.
Also from here, we can see some hot air balloons in the distance. Here's what their view of the track is. Yeah, kinda boring. Back into the cave, we can check out my extreme nitpicks. The small stream they've built to flow out of the pond, I think is a texture oversight, as they've used the still water texture here as seen in the pond instead of the flowing water texture like from the river. And speaking of texture nitpicks, now that we're taking things as slow as we are, we can really stop to smell the roses. These flowers were not given a transparency texture for where the flower part ends on the model they use. Just saying. And like East Stadium, this track has paths to and from the racetrack as well. Approaching the finish line now, you might have noticed these statues, but let's get a little closer. They're kind of like, what, seahorses with sharp teeth? They're really exotic compared to everything else in this area, very Aztec. But there's one statue in the track I know you haven't noticed, and it's from the cave. It's kind of hard to see from all this foliage, but if we clear those out, behold, a shrine for the king of these statues with 2 smaller statues next to him, confirming they're seahorses. I mean, I don't know why, though. What this track has in relation to aquatic life is beyond me. But you know which track does? Water Palace. Inconsistently, this track isn't referred to as Sail Camp. despite it being the first time your vehicle turns into a boat. But it is still called something different, Atlantis, which is also weird given that most of it is above the surface. It is around water and ruins, so that's probably why it's called that, and there's a few interesting ruins that I want to point out. First of all, the most interesting part of this track to me while racing was finding out where the road would go had we not been detoured. Taking a look, well, no more ruins, it just wraps around to the very back of the track. In fact, the only parts where the road is broken are specifically on the sides of where we race. Aside from that, the whole road is just a circle around the palace. And speaking of ruined circular roads, well, it's hard to see because it's visually blocked off by the direction signs. The left half of what would be a back garden ring is in ruin as well, thus the final detour. Also, the exit of the boat section isn't a boat ramp, but instead the part of the broken walkway that has yet to sink. We can actually see where it used to connect to if we look off to the right. Overlooking the starting line from the second floor's balcony, we can look straight up to see a large sun at the top of the dome. I've never played Sonic Rush, so I'm not really sure if this is anything important. I doubt it. Okay, so the aquarium full of jellyfish as you exit the first tunnel, yeah, you know that term. But you haven't seen the other side. There is a sole jellyfish in this tank, all alone. And what are usually just crescents on a real moon jellyfish, this guy has hearts. He just wants some love. Cursed to stare at his jellyfish friends, but locked away forever. I feel so sorry for the little guy. Anyway, in the next room's glass tube, you can see a wide variety of... Yo! Is that the Coelacanth from Sonic Frontiers? It is! Wait, that's actually a crazy lore implication. Hold on. According to Sage,
Big the cat is an illusion recreated from your memory.
so that would mean the one you fish out of cyberspace is this one that he saw during Sonic Rush. Wild. Metal Harbor. Ah, yes, the Guardian Units of Nations Navy. Immediately upon spawn, we have these... what looks like an Ingas Century APC RHD. Armored car. Regardless, they are human-sized, not Mobian-sized. Which makes sense given that Gun is still very much a mainly human-ran organization. But size here is inconsistent, as these F-15s fit the Mobians, not the humans. The funniest part, though, is the aircraft carrier itself being so scaled down that the windows are the size of my hand. There's admittedly not a lot to check out in Metal Harbor. What you see is what you get, but, these stairs immediately off the track do lead to a second floor, by the way. And OSHA approved, we've got handrails. We've got a couple set pieces from SA2 that line parts of the track, like that structure that Sonic pulleys up and the barrels Big fishes off. Here's a gun hunter up close, by the way. These things look so cool. But the last thing on this track I know you missed is rather funny. Every Mobian cheers from the sidelines in the direction you're coming from, ecstatic about the race. Except this one. This lady loves her some McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle. Sand Road! Aside from having the best song in the game, and yes, I will fight you on that, there's a ton of eye candy in this stage. Let's speed through a few. Did you notice that the flames on some of the ghost pillars are green? By lifting these echidna statues out of the ground, we can see they actually have hieroglyphics on their back. Stop and stare at this water. It's gorgeous. I want to swim here so bad. In all my time driving this track, I swear I've never seen this egg pond. Wait, and isn't his friend here doing the playable egg pond's rival dialogue animation? Oh yeah, he totally is. In the background, you can see these pyramids. This isn't the usual camera trickery, by the way, these things are huge. Check it out. Since Team Sonic Racing, I've wondered how the point hovers, but there's nothing here. Or is there? Here's some lore for you. Also scattered here are these massive gears. And what's that etched into them? That's right, those are moon nettles. Now, why would Sonic Unleashed stuff be here? Here's a hint, Sand Road is in Sandopolis, a section of Angel Island. If you know your lore, you'll know the ancients used to live here. Or at least Angel Island before it was floating. The echidna actually activated the floating part. That's why all the desert statues are echidna. They lived here as well. Anyway, the ancients actually lived above it in Sky Sanctuary. And this is why there's a cyberspace terminal there. They use Angel Island itself for farming or something. Now, Sky Sanctuary isn't floating like the island is via the Master Emerald. And we know this because it doesn't fall when the Master Emerald is removed. Instead, Knuckles says that he isn't actually sure what keeps the Sky Sanctuary floating, calling it a mysterious power. And if he doesn't know what it is, I certainly do not. However, we can see what's possibly the power moving through the abundance of these technological pattern dark blue glass. This glowing light blue light wraps around a lot of the Sanctuary's infrastructure. And what do we see wrapped around the floating part of the pyramid? That's right, the same glowing light blue light. Now, is this just a random desert-looking building to add decoration to the scene? Yes. Am I going to overanalyze the hell out of it because it actually makes some sort of sense with its design and geographical similarity? Also yes. Did Sega or anyone working on this game think of this in advance? Definitely not. No. The last thing in Sand Road you missed was this crashed Egg Fleet ship from Sonic Forces. I guess Knuckles just hasn't found it yet. Ever since the Restoration Clean Sweep Inc. started collecting and recycling their parts, these things have become extremely rare. And a select few of them were instead repaired and given a fresh coat of paint, and that's how they have them to use in the IDW comics. Who wants to go shopping? I've heard Colorful Mall has some sales. Buy one, get one free. Another buy one, get one free. 50% off. All reasonable. 99% off? Whatever shop this one belongs to is going out of business. Holy cow. Colorful Mall is my favorite track in the game. It includes all the set dressing you'd expect from a mall-themed course, like this directory to help you navigate the mall, with real pictures of food from the shops here. Or this directory. That lies. This isn't the ground floor. What impresses me is the interiors, ads, and movie posters. Huge shout out to these 6 artists for making all we're about to go over in Colorful Mall. And they do even more in later tracks. First off, the interiors of the shops. These shops don't go all the way back. They're instead just concave to give the illusion of depth to the player. There's this shoe shop, this other shoe shop, this candy store, a toy store with a few promotionals around the mall, a clothing store, another clothing store, but this time with backpacks, a lovely bookstore, an interesting shop selling succulents, a Chinese store of some kind, and the formal attire store. This one's actually my favorite because, although whether it was intentional or not is up for debate, these shoes appear to be proportional to all the mall's Mobian customers, what with the large cartoon feet. Now for the advertisements and promotionals in the mall. Or at least the drawn ones. If we went over all the ads, we'd be here for an hour. There's an ice cream ad for the ice cream store towards the end of the level. My boy King Yacker has his own advertisement to buy him and his friends, I guess? Another Wisp ad wanting you to use drill and listen to its horrible noise. 2 different motivational posters drawn in marker, an ad for the chili dog stand as well as the chili dog itself, some peppermint candy, a fruit bar, a donut shop, and my 2 favorites, Soliana Coffee with a misspelling of coffee, and the Dragon Kitchen, a Chinese restaurant. This obviously implies that China exists in this universe and Chunnan is only a village in it. Which sort of makes sense given that Unleashed's Empire City is a city in the United Federation, but I would kind of expect Chunnan's country to be the Dragon Kingdom, like from Archie, not just straight China. There's also not 1, but 2 painted tourism ads to the Starfall Islands. Although East Stadium has the bigger version of them, as well as another one of the Wisp ads, the Rocket Boxing Glove item, and finally an ad for Donpaw Motors displaying Sonic's favorite car driving through Ocean Palace. On the 3rd floor is the colorful theater, where we have movie posters to check out, such as Crimson Obsession, Ring of Destiny, Rogue Avenger, Chao Warriors, the horror film Orca, and the last addition to the Chao in Space series, The Dark Chao. Also, it's Popcorn Day. Get 20% more popcorn per bucket. An increase, or increase, as Colorful Mall's second spelling error reads. The final thing to show off in Colorful Mall are these actual 3D additions to the 3D Illusion shop interiors. They're not particularly interesting except for this one with a mini Green Hill Zone sitting on top. And they said this game was Green Hill Zone free. While most of the text in this game is absolute gibberish as it's never meant to be read anyway, they still want you to recycle, so that's actually written out. The addition of this graphics animal ears to match the Mobian customers is a really nice touch, by the way. Lastly, and I doubt you've even noticed this, though we're all staring at it during this turn, there's a pianist over there finishing his performance with quite the audience applauding him. Mystic Jungle. It's a short track with generic jungle on all sides. There's not a lot to talk about here, except the moon, weirdly. I'd expect to be part of the skybox, but no, it hovers above the casino. The only interesting part of this track is the snake, whose body does extend a bunch, as it should even when it's out of sight to wrap around these rock pillars, but ironically does not connect to the head. That comes out of a totally different rock pillar. Apotos. Oh, Apotos, my beloved. Y'all feel like driving in a car after a beer with this one? But nostalgia lenses off, there's not really a lot to look at. As it's a fairly open level, you can see everything from the track, except this barrel texture laid out behind this house. But there's definitely more here than Mystic Jungle. This stage pulls from textures from the original Apotos, so just because you can see these signs doesn't mean there's not more to understand. Time for a quick Greek lesson. You might recognize these from the Apotos hub, but what about ones without a translation attached? See these chairs? It doesn't look like these chairs are connected to any restaurant, but according to this sign, not only are they the seating area for the restaurant, but the restaurant's even named Saffron. On the alternate path, you might see these as you drive past. The top reads shop, while the bottom reads temple, referring to the Sonic universe's Gaia, not Judaism. What is the main religion of Greece anyway? Greek Orthodox. Huh. The shop sign is pointed the correct direction at an ice cream stand meant to represent the one from Sonic Unleashed. I question why it's the only model to not be ripped straight from the game, but then I remembered Sega's allergy to using actual humans anymore and how their original ice cream stand would be too tall. And just a few feet away, we have our last cool thing, this really excited pelican telling you to turn right, in case you somehow didn't see what he's standing on. I shall name him... Hey, hon?
Yeah?
Can you give me a name for a pelican?
Pete.
Thanks, hon. Welcome to the Wonder Museum, which may or may not be either the museum from Sega's 2-Point Museum game or the Mythsonian Museum from the as of right now upcoming Chaotix 30th Anniversary comic. Regardless, there's so much history to explore. So let's grab a coffee from the cafe and begin our audio tour. But first we gotta get a day pass. $95? Damn! Well, it's either $95 or two Among Us crewmates, and I only have one and left it at home. Fine, but I better be able to touch as much as I want with this. Okay. Wait a minute. Check it out. It's the statue from Sonic Frontiers. And this thing, I forget what it is, but it's definitely from Frontiers as well. Behind it is this employees only sign, which I'm assuming was made by one of the 6 artists I mentioned before, given that it's drawn marker like the others from Colorful Mall. At the end of the hallway is the icon of the museum, and it's interesting. Now, we've had a ton of versions of Earth in games over the years, but Sega has started to stay somewhat consistent, given its inclusion in Frontiers and Shadow Generations. The reason I think it's interesting is that you can tell they started with the actual Earth when making this one, because it's kind of still the real Earth. Like, India was untouched. Up next is my favorite section, dinosaurs! The big dinosaur doesn't exist in the real world, by the way. Instead, it's the dinosaur from Sonic and the Secret Rings Dinosaur Jungle, and by affiliation, the title screen, which is a cool little Easter egg. These fossils are used again later, regardless of the section's theme. And next to it is quite possibly the funniest evolution progress chart I have ever seen. Never mind figuring out if the ancient Babylonians did or did not look like birds. Did you know that Sonic evolved from a woolly mammoth? Over here, we've got that new thing from Minecraft. Oh, and this baby dinosaur coming out of an egg, remember it, we'll come back to it later. And speaking of things to remember, the map at the entrance? Yeah, this is not what I had in mind when I saw the top down of the intersection. Skipping the boat section because there's nothing particularly interesting about it, the automobile section has some fascinating stuff. For example, this steam-powered portable traction engine with a spherical stack and a steering yoke instead of a wheel. Next comes an old car you'd be inclined to say is a Ford Model T, but you'll notice the steering wheel is on the right side of the car.
A legacy of the railroad, since that's where the conductor sat. But in the Model T, Ford moved it to the left, which he considered safer.
Next up, and finally rocking the Donpa Motors logo, is a car of 1950s America in a lovely pastel blue with a purple, yellow, and pink variant. I don't know why the modern cars have their headlights off, whereas the antiques do, but inconsistently, this whole section is advertised on a few of the flags in the lobby with the modern cars, but the lights there are on. Now let's take a look at the car charts. Behind the traction engine is not a diagram of the car in front of it like the others for some reason. We're instead looking at a whatever this is and a blimp car. There's a timeline chart of the progression of car styles, but my favorite chart is the middle one. We've got the old car, an even older car, and the double-deckered couch on a trike. What even is this? It doesn't even have an engine. Finally, the inner lane bugs the OCD in me. We've got the blimp, the double-deckered couch, the antique, the VW bug, the older generic car, the modern generic car, and the modern generic car again. You made all these graphics just to have one space remaining? Just draw another car! In the next section, Aeronautical History, is an actual blimp and a hot air balloon, which, despite what the wiki says, isn't one of the ones from Spagonia, I checked, nor from Rainbow Garden. Also, apparently, the Donpa has his own airline. Anyway, the Tornado and its many versions. You've all seen them, but here's a better look. The one on the left is from Sonic Lost World. The one on the right is from, well, I think it was made for this game, actually. It's nearly one-to-one with the Tornado from Sonic 3 and Origins, but neither of those were 3D outings. But it does have one difference: the propellers on this one are red versus the silver of all the 2D versions. In the middle is the Tornado 3 from Sonic Unleashed. And for those wondering, yes, Tails' tablet, the Miles Electric, is still attached. Here's what it looks like from Tails' perspective, by the way. Filming from here makes me feel like I'm playing a VR game. This is actually really fun. The next section contains historical constructs. You immediately see more of those Sonic Frontier statues, but there are so many references in this room. And speaking of Frontiers, I should clarify that none of these are the ancient tablet from that game. We've got another Sandopolis statue, but it's huge. And I thought these pillars were from Lost World's desert biome, but after checking, not the case. My favorite reference, though, in fact, it's my favorite thing in the entire museum. Yo, Sonic 06 Tropical Jungle statue. They never reference that game. That's awesome. Guess what's not awesome? All these statues in the room are off-center. Have fun with that information. The last thing in this room you may have missed is this seating area to watch what would be a documentary, but since this is a video game then you no one ever look at it, it just loops footage of the globe at the entrance and that dinosaur coming out of the egg I said you'd see again. The final section of this level is, thematically, the gift shop. You might have missed this booth while gunning for the warp ring, but you can actually check out. There's a cashier chilling here enjoying the race. We're not quite ready to check out though. We've got to take a look at the final lap because this museum comes alive at night. And I do mean at night. Lap 1 is during the day. By the way, this day-night shift is unlike any other racing track in the game. This wondrous museum shoves everything in it that's alive in your face, but that's not all that changes. Did you notice the Echidna statue's eyes and crown begin to glow? And while you might have noticed the small Boom Boos wear miner helmets while the bigger Boom Boos wear cowboy hats, what I bet you didn't realize is that their helmets' lamps turning on and off is reliant on your own proximity to them. Check it out. Okay, now we can leave. Under these Mobian-themed exit signs. I'll be honest, when I first started making this video, I planned on doing all the 6 initially unlocked Grand Prix, but I quickly realized there was so much I couldn't do it all at once. So, part 2 when? Depends on how much you guys like this video. We do all sorts of stuff just like this every few weeks, and if you want to know when the next part of the CrossWorlds series comes out, go ahead and turn on the notification bell. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. We also have memberships if you really want to support the channel, but that's not that important. Regardless, there is a lot more to check out. I'm personally really excited for the Eggman Expo. Imagine all the stuff that we'll find in there. I really like the Sonic 06 robots. I'm excited to see them again. Thanks again for coming with me and checking out all this stuff, whether it be weird, cool, interesting, whatever. Let me know what you found most interesting down below, and I will see you guys later.